All right, in this Knife Thoughts video, we're looking at this knife. This is the Greatest from Cutlery Titty Ute, number 29, full model number 291319, meaning it's a 29 with a clip point main blade, 3 blades, and it was made in 2019. And it is the Stockyard Whittler pattern in grits with butter and molasses acrylic. So that's actually the main reason why I got this knife. I really like the look of acrylics. Some people find them to be less traditional, but the fact is that knife companies have been using synthetic handles for over 100 years, from celluloid to micarta and Delrin up to acrylics. And that's the nice thing about acrylics versus the older celluloid is the celluloid would gas out and sometimes even catch on fire. Acrylic's not going to do that. So I really like the look of this grits, grits with butter and molasses acrylic, and was interested in this pattern and decided to get one. So this pattern is based on, I believe, a black box Winchester knife, 3-blade Whittler that was made, previously. So like most of Greatest Cutlery's knives, it's a reproduction in that sense, but it's not an exact reproduction. And in the context of Greatest Cutlery, you have to remember that calling something a reproduction is not a negative thing like I think sometimes it's connotated. Greatest Cutlery is bringing these patterns that haven't been made for a long time back in a really, really good way. So as you can see here, this pattern is a 3-spring pattern. So rather than being like a Stockman, it's called a Stockyard Whittler, which is kind of, I think, a nod to the fact that it is similar. It's a Whittler because it has 3 springs versus 2, like on a Stockman. On a Stockman, there's the main blade on 1 spring and then 2 secondaries on the 2nd spring. This one has 3 springs, and some people on the forums were not super happy about that because they thought that it would make it big and bulky and less easy to carry. And it looked in the mock-ups that Greatest Cutlery put up that it would have secondary blades that weren't really very long, which didn't make sense being that it had 3 full springs. You'd think that they'd be able to put long secondaries on. So when I got this, I was really happy and kind of didn't reversed. I actually didn't think it was great that it was going to be a 3-spring at first. I had no experience with this type of knife, but that opinion was reversed when I got it. And the reason is because, one, it isn't very thick or bulky at all. So you can see that it has no liners between those springs. A real quick example, because I just made a video of it, is this 23. You can see that there's a liner between the 2 springs. But on this, there isn't, and it makes it pretty thin. It's certainly not thicker than a 2-spring. I'm actually going to stop this video real quick and splice it together because I want to show you this versus a Stockman, and I don't have one right next to me here. So it'll be a quick pause here. So sorry about the little transition there, but I wanted to get some comparisons. So first off, I'd like to compare the thickness of this to a 3-blade Stockman. So this is a 53 Cuban Stockman. So it's a bigger knife in length, but you can see that it's really not too much thinner, if at all. Now, part of that is because, the unevenness of stag, but it's certainly not much thinner, if at all. And the reason there is, actually, I think the springs and the liner are the same thickness as the 3 springs on the Stockyard Whittler, and I think that that's because, one, these springs are pretty thin. These are not super thick blades, which I really like, and there's no liners, so you can see that it's not much difference there. I also got out a single spring 2-blade pen style knife. You can see there is a difference there, but because there's 2 blades on this spring, this spring is even thicker than those on the Stockman, and that's to help fit those 2 blades in. So this blade has to be ground on one side, or well, it's ground on both sides, but more on one side to fit those 2 blades in. So that's why the 3 springs don't make this knife a super thick knife. The other thing that I like is that these blades are a lot longer than it looked in that mock-up, the secondary blades. So I'll show you the main blade here, and the main blade is a clip point. You can see that it does have a half stop, And it's a really classic clip point. Nice kind of long clip there, but a nice wide blade too. And so that's the length of the main blade there. But if you look at the one secondary, which is a sheep foot, it's not too much shorter at all, really. So that's really nice. They fit a good amount of blade in, and then I'll show you the other secondary, which is a punch or awl. I would call it an awl, but some people are calling it a punch. Also nice size to that awl, not too much shorter than the main blade. So that was another thing that was a pleasant surprise for me with this knife. The secondary blades are not as short as I expected them to be. Another really nice thing with how they decided to make this knife is how deep these secondaries sit. So you can see that they're nice and out of the way, so when you do have the main blade open, they're not in the way of your grip like at all. Probably less than any other traditional knife I've had. You can see that when you grip it, they don't interfere with your grip whatsoever. So that's really nice. Now the thing with that is if you sharpen these secondary blades, you wouldn't be able to drop the kicks. The nail nicks would go below, but you won't need to, because as you can see, the edge is so far below the handle there, the blade well, that you would never need to. If you sharpen it enough, you'd basically have no blade left. So I really like how deep these secondaries sit. The other thing that I really like about it is this awl. So some people were like, why have an awl? Whoever needs to use an awl? Why not have a third blade? Or some people were saying a cap lifter. I don't think that they would have been able to fit a cap lifter in this handle, and it wouldn't be traditional. Great Asian Cutlery does like to make things traditional, but the thing with an awl is that it actually is a really useful blade shape. Now, I don't know how many people are going to be using this knife hard, but I plan to if I decide to keep it. But it's a really useful thing. You can make holes with this if you want to puncture something and have less risk of the sharp edge cutting through into something. You can puncture things. You can ream things out with it. You can scrape with it. You can also even do a little bit of prying with it, light prying of course, or use it like a marlin spike to help untie things. So I think that there are lots of uses to awls, and it's interesting to see the different ways that Great Asian Cutlery has made their awls. This one is a little different than any of the other ones that I've seen. It has a flat side here, and then a convex edge all the way to the edge, or a convex grind all the way to the edge, and then a concave grind here on this side. So that would make a really, really good awl or reamer. So I like the awl as a secondary blade. Along with that, I really like the blade shape combination of a clip point and a sheep foot, because the clip point gives you, that point, which is less necessary with having this, but still nice to have, and a good amount of belly. And then the sheep foot gives you that nice long edge that can do really good pull cutting. And this is a good sized sheep foot. It's similar, not quite as tall or quite as wide, but similar to the sheep foot that you'd find on a 15. It, in comparison to the secondary on the 35 Churchill, is significantly longer, not quite as tall, but a good bit longer, so you get some good extra cutting edge there. And then in comparison to maybe a Stockman's secondary edge or secondary blade sheep foot, again, it's not quite as tall, but it's certainly longer. So it's nice, you get a good amount of straight edge on that. Unlike a lot of Stockman, as I said, all three of these blades have half stops, and they all three have really nice action. So I'll show you them all separately. The main blade, right about a 5 pull, really nice smooth pull, opens nicely, no blade play, and then has that nice snap. Now, Mike Latham of Collector Knives, yeah, I said that right, talks about that kind of bounce at the half stop, and it is a nice thing. I never really had put my finger on that before as being a nice thing, but it is nice. And then the close all the way, nice snap, and I haven't found any blade wrap on any of these blades, so that's always nice. Same deal on the sheet foot, nice, right at about a 5, nice and smooth, opens all the way nicely with no blade play, and snaps closed. Same deal on the awl. You really do have to get your fingernail in. This would be tough to do if you didn't have a little bit of a fingernail. Let me see if I can do it with my, what is this, index finger. So yeah, because these pulls aren't super hard, it's again right around a 5, it isn't tough to get that. So that was one thing I was a little concerned about when I saw how deep these sit, but it really isn't tough to get to. And again, comes all the way open with no blade play, nice snap, really nice walk and talk, and very good action on all 3 of these blades. Now you can see that it has a hot dog shield. Again, some people on the forums and stuff get tired of the hot dog shield because GEC does use it pretty often on the Titty-Ute knives, or Titty-Ute branded knives. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I don't think that it's necessary. I think that it's one of those things that they add to a lot of knives because it is an extra step and it kind of adds more processes and makes it look a little bit higher end, I think. But on something like this with a really cool handle material, I don't know that it adds to the knife for me. But moving on to the handle material, it's a really cool handle material. Now it's based on an older, I believe, Schrade, but possibly not Schrade, handle material that was used, which was grits with butter, or butter and grits or something. Some people online, when they first saw it, again, were not so sure about it, but I think it looks really, really nice. It has a good amount of chatoyance here. I think that's how you say that, like what pearl has, where it kind of shines and has some glitteriness in the whiter areas here, which is really nice. I like that look. I like pearl and abalone and stuff like that. And then it has the kind of tan golden color, which is the butter, kind of mixed in there. And then finally there's white lines with black inside the white. And I think it looks really cool. To me, I mean, I haven't had grits a whole lot of times because it's just not something that I grew up eating too much. I mean, I had it sometimes, but it does look like grits with butter and molasses to me. I mean, the white looks like grits. Somebody really liked their butter and molasses on this one, but definitely has that look to me. And this one was picked out for me, and it looks really nice. I like it. It has lots of that swirl, really cool, and they're all going to be really unique in that sense that they're all going to have their own swirls and stuff, which is nice about acrylic. Now, one thing, acrylic should be a really, really stable material. You shouldn't have to worry about any kind of deformation or anything like that, shrinking and stuff. That said, I have had some, I really believe, and I've shown it to GEC, and, you know, I mean, sometimes they said that it can happen, but it shouldn't. But I've had, I think, some shrinkage on acrylic handle knives from Great Ocean Cutlery. These are knives that I've had for a long time and that are users, so they do get wet and, you know, oily and stuff like that. But I have had some of that, and I'm sure some people would disagree with me and say that no, it didn't happen, you just didn't notice it or something. But I really believe that I have had some shrinkage and warpage with acrylic from Great Ocean Cutlery. That said, though, it doesn't really matter on a user, and you usually can't see it at first look. It takes really looking closely, and I really do like the look of these grits with butter and molasses acrylic handles. So it's a really cool knife. Now this pattern is the same pattern as the 92 Eureka. So if you turn it like this, it's the same pattern. It's just flipped. Rather than the main blade coming out of the small end like on the 92 Eureka, it comes out of the larger end on this one. And they are doing a run of the 92, so if you think you'd like the main blade to come out of this side better, and it's going to be a jack pattern with a spear point and a coping blade, then maybe check that out. But it's always cool to see Great Ocean Cutlery using their patterns both ways, right? Flipped. What this pattern is called, I'm not exactly sure. I think it's something like a balloon dogleg swell back knife pattern. So it's one of those patterns that's kind of hard to define. But it's just really nice. It's really well made. The really only complaint I have is that I've noticed that this clip point blade does stick up, and it sits high enough in the blade well that if you run your finger here, it gets caught. Now, I think that I could drop it slightly and still be able to get at that nail nick, but not too much. So that is, one small thing. I'm probably more sensitive than others on, having a proud tip. It's not quite proud of the handle, but I do think if I decide to keep this, I might drop that kick a little bit. But either way, it's a really well-made knife. You can see no big gaps or anything. You can't really see any daylight through them or anything, like through the springs or anything like that. And just, an interesting pattern from Great Cutlery, another one they kind of pulled out of the annals of history of knife making, and one that I was happy to get. And again, like I say, if I keep it, it's going to be a user. So it's nice to have those, 3 really useful blades. And it's an interesting looking knife. They are making it, they're making it right now, so there are going to be other versions. I don't think that this version sold super quickly like a lot of other Great Cutlery knives do. So you might still be able to get this one specifically, but you'll definitely be able to get, they're making it in Osage orange wood. Traditional Pocket Knives is doing an SFO in coffee house acrylic. They're also doing them in, let's see, several other handle materials. I know they're doing a jig bone. And then finally, Marin Grosh, which is another historic knife brand, is doing a different version with a spay blade rather than the awl. So that makes it kind of a Stockman Whittler, and that's one that I'm really interested in. I'm hoping that they're done by the Rendezvous. Marin Grosh was at the Rendezvous last year and will be there this year. So I'm hoping to be able to see one in person and see how I like it. But if you are not into the awl, that's another option. So it's a really interesting knife, and if you do want to get one, I'm going to give a couple recommendations for dealers to buy them from. Now, when I do this, there are lots and lots of Great Cutlery dealers. The big ones are good, Collector Knives and Knives Ship Free, GP Knives and DLT Trading are all good, and I've bought knives from, I believe, all of them, but they often sell out first, or the reserves at Collector Knives are filled, and I find that people think that, once that happens, they can't get the knives. So I'll tell you a few of the Great Cutlery dealers that I often, or most often, buy from and have had a lot of good interactions with. The first is BlueCreekCutlery.com. I've been buying knives from Ken there for a while, and he's always given great service and everything. So check him out. Let him know I sent you at BlueCreekCutlery.com. Another one is JSR Sports and More. It's just jsrsportsandmore.com. Jamie has also given me good service and everything like that. And you can email him or go to the website. And then finally, traditionalpocketknives.com. It's actually C. Reisner Cutlery is the company there, but the website is traditionalpocketknives.com. Austin from traditionalpocketknives.com has also given me great service, and I've bought several knives from them. One thing with them is they don't take the reservations. So I think sometimes people are frustrated with reservations, and that's one nice thing. You can follow them on Instagram, Facebook, and stuff like that, and just see when the knives are released. So those are a couple options. Like I say, there are lots of other options. I've bought knives from Frank's, Classic Knives, Gunstock Jack, lots of different places. But those are the 3 that I kind of are my go-tos. So if you like this, definitely, check out those guys or any of the Great Cutlery dealers and get one of these or a different version of this knife. Or if you'd prefer the 3-blade with the spay rather than the awl, check out Marin Grosh. But either way, there will be a Knife Thoughts article on this knife, as long as I can get one done here before I get a bunch of knives at the Rendezvous. And it's a cool one that I'm glad to have gotten my hands on. There will be posts about it on my social media. Don't forget to follow me at Knife Thoughts, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr. And also, don't forget to go out and do good.